And today we have Katrina Collier in the room, and we are going to talk about her debut memoir, The Damage of Words. And she shares her 12-year healing journey, dealing, detailing her recovery from narcissistic childhood abuse, complex PTSD, and self-loathing. She explores diverse healing modalities, past lives, DNA level trauma, and her high sensitivity and spiritual gifts, offering research backed insights and hope to inspire others to transform pain into empowerment and reclaim their worth. Welcome, Katrina.
Thank you for having me. I feel very honored to be here.
Yeah, this is a topic that I talk about all the time. And I think going into a little bit deeper because you bring in things I don't necessarily talk about to like the DNA. Yes. Do I heal people on a DNA level? Yes, I can do that. Do I talk about it? No, I don't talk about it.
No.
But, and the self-loathing, we all know that that's part of it, but just the whole thing of just really going into the various healing modalities, because it's not just one that got us where we are today. And it's a lot. And I've been doing a lot of thinking about that. So I want to turn this over to you about
Sure.
your journey of becoming an awakening spirit, and we will go from there.
Sure. It was quite a journey. I was actually listening back to your podcast with Catherine Giovanni, and mine was so different. It was like completely, she was new. I didn't always know. So it was really, I started dealing with my childhood trauma from this life when I turned 40. I fell into healing. A big reason I've written my memoir is please don't fall into healing. Please choose it. And I started working on this life. So I did a lot of this life stuff. And both Michelle and Laura, who are the first two healers I work with, were very much sort of introducing me to the universe and energy and what you attract and all that kind of stuff. But it wasn't until I met Monica, who I met at the Pilates studio randomly, who has a very serious job over here, but on the side was doing all these courses in angelic Reiki and healing and mediumship. And she would use, well, initially was using me as a guinea pig. And then, of course, I started paying her because she was so brilliant. And it was, she would talk about stuff. And for some reason, I wouldn't think she was insane. I'd be listening to this going, I really should think she's in belongs in a straitjacket, but somehow I know this. Somehow this sounds familiar. Somehow I don't. And there were all these moments that made it seem real. So we were sitting in a restaurant having dinner one evening, and this man came in and he was so agitated. When someone's like, and you can feel their vibe. And she dropped her head for a second, and he was so like vibing so weirdly that I had a pain in my shoulder. Like it was very strange. She dropped her head for a second, looked back up, and I went, what did you do? Because it had gone. I'm like, okay, what was that? And she said, I just asked Archangel Michael to put us in a golden dome of protection. I'm like, okay. And so she just sort of made me intrigued, and that started me on my way. So where she was studying at the College of Psychic Studies here in London, I thought, well, I'll go. Let me go and do a grounding protection course, for example. So I did that. And then I felt Archangel Michael was like, oh, okay, right. Okay, I'm starting to believe. And it was sort of like this slow journey of sessions with her, experiences of my own, moments like I was walking in the fields with my dogs and I'd done one lap. There was nobody else in the fields. I did one lap and I'm like, right, if you're real, prove it to me. And as I came around the second loop, there were two pink balls, one a pink tennis ball, which to be honest, I'd never seen until that day, sitting underneath this particular oak tree that I have a real affinity for. As okay. And then after that, it was just this willingness to immerse myself in it and trust her direction. She introduced me to beautiful stepping stones through Greenwich here where time starts. In London, and I started doing past life work with Lorraine Flaherty, and just it was like that, and I just gradually opened. But what I hadn't realized, and actually it was very interesting listening to your conversation again with Catherine when you were talking about the clairaudience. I hadn't realized I was clairaudient. I knew I had claircognizance. Like I knew I had a very strong knowing because I just know stuff. And it's like I knew my ex-husband was gonna have a car accident when he did, and my mum had that as well, so it's like, "Okay, this is familiar." But I didn't know about the clairaudience, until I was in Australia catching up with some people, and I met somebody new, and I was very drunk, and I do not recommend anybody do this ever. This is a bad thing to do, but I was very drunk, and I started saying what was going on in my head, and I was channeling his sister, and I had no idea she was dead. I didn't even know he had a sister. Like, I'd literally just met this person. But it was crazy. But again, alcohol, you know, I've actually stopped drinking because I just like, I don't trust myself not to go too far and then and say stuff I shouldn't. But so it was from that. And then it just evolved. I just kept working with people, healing stuff, healing all these past lives. And then I started working with the amazing Isabel Gatherer, who's my spiritual coach and mentor. And she really helped me to really open up my gifts fully, to trust what I was hearing, to ascend to the fifth dimension, all those sorts of things. And also actually to bring the book through because I'd been told by a couple of psychics, oh, you're going to write this book, it's going to be everywhere. And I'm like, really? Okay. And I've been told I'm going to speak in arenas. And I'm going, okay, not about recruitment, like about what? And it was then it started, they brew, don't they? Authors know they brew up and you just got to get it out. And it was like, but what is this? Isabel, help me birth. And she has basically been my birthing partner of getting the story out. And it's really funny because I'm known as this very professional person who works in the world of recruitment, encouraging people to, treat people better through the hiring process. That's my Jade. But there's this whole other side. But what I found is now the more I talk about it, the more I find there's lots of people who are remembering that their soul's having a human experience, but it's just we've got it separated. Actually, it was a bit like when you were talking about wearing the crystal. I was laughing. Oh, you went into it with a crystal on and nobody noticed. Nobody
I
said a
know, right?
word. But it's like how I spot spiritual people like, oh, crystals. Like I'll go talk to them. But yeah, so it's been this long process. But I sort of almost feel like I'm coming out of the closet, if that makes sense. Because I've
It
got these
does.
gifts, I use these gifts, but I don't tell people I'm using them unless I go, I have a message for you. Do you want to hear it? But I don't do it on a professional level, like you're doing, as obviously. So
Well, I know that what people don't
that was
know,
a
and I'm
lot.
gonna share this for once, is I'm gonna
Yeah.
tell people that, generally, when I do the show, 90% of it's
Mm.
being channeled through. Yes, it's my
Ah.
experience, but I'm also being
Yeah.
channeled, and there are
Yeah.
times and I know nobody sees it, and I look at the replay and I go, "Okay, how I look and what was going on up here were 2 different things," because when
Oh
they're
yeah.
talking to you, you think you're, like, babbling or something because
Yeah.
they kinda pushed you aside and you don't
Mm.
even know it. But see, what they do now is they just put these goosebumps all the way up and down my legs and arms like they're doing right now to let me know, like,
Ah.
and they're laughing. They're having a good time with this
Yeah.
because it's like, "Yeah, we want you to do that because it's about surrender. It's about
Mm.
trusting what you know." But
Yes.
it wasn't easy to get here because
No.
when you live in the world that we lived in, especially back in my day, this was
Mm.
not something that was ever talked about. I mean, I remember when transcendental meditation came by and it was like, "Woo, that's so woo-woo,"
Mm.
and we didn't even have the word woo-woo yet, but it was
Yeah.
like, "You're doing what?" I mean, it was like that was transcendental meditation, and
Yeah.
it's such a mainstream thing now, but
Mm.
it was a big deal when I was coming
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
And because my mother was getting into it, and it was because of that that I got into that Edgar Cayce
Mm.
meeting where I had my first experience of meditation, which was the
Mm.
thing that saved my life. Because if I didn't go, I
Yeah.
wouldn't be here today, and it
Mm.
was what opened my mind to there's gotta be something more than what's going on in here. Because I was suicidal.
Yeah.
I didn't wanna
Mm.
live, and my mother knew. She was like, "I don't know how to save her," and
Yeah.
so that was what my mother was observing but felt helpless, and there's so many more stories behind that whole thing, but
Yeah.
the whole point is just realizing that this she was crazy, she was a crazy lady, and she laughed through
Mm.
everything, through tragedy, through stress, and it wasn't until both my parents died where I really accepted
Mhm.
that they suffered from everything you're talking about,
Mm.
the self-loathing, the PTSD,
Yeah.
the trauma. I mean, they both came from abusive homes.
Yeah,
And,
for sure.
and they never talked because that was the
Stiff
silent
upper lip.
generation. And so what did they do? The gift they
Push it
gave me
down,
was all
push
of
it
that.
down.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll just pass it on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even through the vibration, you just pass it on to everybody around you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't really talked about my childhood, but in a nutshell, my mother was a covert narcissist. She died just in November, and she was extremely emotionally and physically abusive to the four of us. But I'm sharing my story. It's my sibling's story isn't mine to tell. And I have spent basically 12, 14 years recovering from it, healing from it, letting go of it. Loads of it is past life stuff. Like, oh my God, we've had so many lives together. And a real fight between us to bring a particular light through, actually, which was released just after she died. I finally won. Took 14 lifetimes. So we've been at it a while. And it's so I chose this life with them again. So
But to heal
mum
and
had a
release
lot
it,
of
right?
to free this light, this
Yeah.
particular, yeah,
Yeah.
it's out. I see it dancing. It's just dancing across the world. It's so wonderful and very needed. Um, very needed. So mum had a lot of instability in her childhood. Her father went to war, World War II, at a really vulnerable age. He also didn't believe that her brother was his child, so he was beaten. Mum was put on a pedestal. So mum's narcissism started then. Her first husband also killed himself. That didn't help. So
Oh
there's a whole
gosh.
load of tragedy that left mum to be that way. My father, bless him, born in 1929. His mum died in 1935 when he was 6, and his father spiraled into poverty. So he had to give my dad and his sister up for adoption. And the people that adopted him were extremely brutal. And my father actually legally unadopted himself when he was 15. But again, we
Wow.
knew nothing about any of this. That was all, as you said, silent generation. I mean, genuinely, mine were right in the silent generation. Push it down. Do not talk about it. And it was interesting writing my memoir because I read about how if you suppress anger, which he did with Valium, you get heart disease. And I went, that was my dad. That's exactly what he did.
Mm.
But honestly, when he died in 2022, I was quite thrilled. People will be like, what? I'm like, I'm going to talk to you now and you're going to bloody listen because I had so much I wanted to say. He didn't, I had forgiven him for not protecting us. I understand why he didn't, but he did not give me a clear path of communication to him. There was always a shared email, or if I called and mum was in the background, he wouldn't speak properly. He would just go, so what have you got to tell me? And I found those words damaging because it's like we're not having a two-way dialogue here. This is weird. So actually when he passed, it was like, right, those clairaudience skills are going to come right into it. And I just, yeah, I let rip. It was, it took me 16 months before I'd let him speak. I had a lot to say. It was surprising how much bubbled up. But that's where I think when you do remember who you are and you remember that you're here and that your souls, and it's easier when someone passes. Like it was just that feeling of, okay, now we can have a different relationship. Like I do feel him around. He's let me know he's around. He sent me signs. He keeps
Yes.
appearing as a blackbird quite a lot.
Yeah, and then
So
my father needed to die, my mother needed to die, they really did, and
Mm,
my mother said, "I don't have any issues with dying," and I'm thinking, "Yes, you do, because you're not leaving, and you need to leave." I mean, when she was
mm.
in hospice, they were like, "I don't know how your mother's living, still breathing with the lung capacity that she does not have at the moment,"
Oh,
and
she
I
was
said, "Because
terrified of the
she was
life
terrified
review.
because she knew where she was going. I knew where she was
Yeah.
going, and
Yeah.
she was absolutely terrified of it. And
Mm,
so the joy about the gift of hospice, and I learned a lot. They kill
mm,
people. I mean, it's the humane death, like how we put,
mm,
and that's what, and it was beautifully done. It was,
mm,
you get to have the quality time. You get to say what you need to say, even if she could say it or
mm,
not. They kept her coherent until the end. It was like bring everybody in. We'll have a celebration of her life. Whatever she wants, you can have." And so what do
Yeah.
we bring in? Baileys and chocolate.
Ah, wow, that's
'Cause
a
that's
rich
what my
end.
mother's that was my mother's, "Bring get me Baileys for Christmas," and I don't know how fast
Wow.
she drank that, but she never had any Baileys in the
I would
house when
drink
I
that
would
very
go over.
fast.
So,
That's my bad one.
yeah,
I would
but it was
totally
just
drink
so
that one.
funny that it was like, "Wow, this is really
Yeah.
interesting," and then she
Mm,
passed, and it was just an
yeah.
interesting experience, and then when my father died, I knew he would die and nobody would be there for him, and they weren't. He
Mm,
had alienated the entire family, I mean, his entire
mm,
family. And my sister said that sh I mean, we had a conversation about it the other day, and she said she just told him, "Why don't you just die already? Just
mm.
die. I mean, you're holding on for what reason?" And it was again, I
Yeah.
think it was that and then he finally I think he heard those words, and he did. Now,
Mm,
I had my own experiences after their death, and I'm not gonna go down that road right now because, it might freak people out just a tad, but I understand it.
mm.
But the interesting thing
Have they
was when
gone
my
into the light or have they
oh, no, they're not
stayed?
there. No, they're
Oh, they
they're like
stayed.
in
Oh,
no, no,
that's annoying.
no. Their lives are questionable right now. They're
Oh.
questionable, because they seem to be inseparable as much as my mother hated my father, she was right there because they showed me when he
Mm,
passed over, they showed she was
yeah.
right there so happy to see him, and she's like, "I wouldn't see that son of a bitch when I" you know, I mean, it was just like, no, she
Oh,
hated
that's
him, and it was like,
bizarre.
"Nope, nope, nope, that's not gonna
Oh,
happen."
no.
And so when my father couldn't do what he wanted to do, he dragged my mother back in, and so they're questioning because 'cause they're in rehabilitation, and my mother came out of
Mm,
rehabilitation, my father comes in, I'm like, "She's just a dry junkie." That was how I viewed her when she said, "I came back."
mm.
But he manipulated her, again, because 'cause they're not of the
Right.
light, in my opinion.
Oh,
And
wow.
so the question is,
Well, they don't have to
because
go
if
into
one
it, do
dies, they
they?
both die. Yeah, I mean, there's a
Right.
lot of things about death
Interesting.
that people don't understand that I've been given the gift
Mm,
to see. And I just shared it with my sisters, the only one I've ever shared it with, because it's not ready to be heard.
yeah.
But you know what? The whole point was is I understand because it was almost like at the time of my father when my father died, it was almost like the
Mm,
timeline of my mom and dad opened up where I understood this lifetime with them because I knew
yeah.
my other lifetimes. I just didn't fully
Mm,
understand this one, but I knew that this was my last lifetime with them. So the depth of the
yeah.
grieving was about I'm never going to see them again, and that's by choice. I'm walking away.
Mm,
And so there was a
same.
totally new level of grief, and,
Ah.
there was a forgiveness element that was like, "Where did this come from?" Because I was
Mm,
elevated into understanding that it's not the human form, it's the spirit
no.
form. And I saw sitting at the conference table, so to speak, in the etheric world, signing
Mm,
the contract of what we were gonna do for each other.
yeah.
I mean, that was
Yeah.
really weird. It's like, I actually signed a contract. I mean, it
Yeah.
was like, I know
Yeah.
you do, but when you see it, it's like,
Yeah.
"Okay, there's some real stuff here going on."
Mm. That's
You
what I
know
loved about the work with, Lorraine Flaherty, who I always pronounce her surname incorrectly. I'm sure she'll forgive me. Flaherty. Anyway, I will give you the spelling so for the show notes. But we would look at the life between life contracts and we would rewrite them by choice from heart all light, and mum and I had a learn love from hate contract which had been going on for thousands of years, and we went back to that life that we just had not learned it, and that was just the beginning. I mean, there were just so many that we had to clear. And it is funny, you talk about damaging words. They're all damaging words. They're all very heavy. There was very rarely anything that was just like, oh, you're going to learn joy. It's just was always this, oh, you're going to start with hate. And it was, in this life, mum recognized my soul as I came through. But similarly, working with Isabel Gatherer, I felt like I stepped out of brambles. It was really interesting. There was so much locked between mum, dad, and myself, and all these. Oh, okay. Went to say thousands. Went to correct myself and heard no thousands of lives together, and it was just I stepped out of the brambles, And they went, "Oh, hang on, I'll fix mum and dad." And they went, "Oh, no, I won't. Oh, no, no, no." And I've never forgotten that feeling of just going, "Meh, not my stuff." But actually, isn't it funny how you felt it made you have a level of grief? It just have gave me a level of elation that I will not have another life with them, that I
Yep.
have done everything, that it's cleared. In fact, I made it very clear I'm not coming back.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
done with my Earth experience.
Oh,
Apparently, I've
yes.
been here from the beginning.
Oh,
And I'm
yeah,
just
me
like,
too.
yeah, mm-mm,
Yep,
I'm not
done.
checking out until I'm 100 and something, but I'm not coming back. I'm like,
Okay,
I
well,
will do
you and
what I
I will
have
be
come
hanging
here to
out together
do.
then.
At the end, like I'll have outlived everyone, but I'll still be here. And then I'm done. I'm going elsewhere. There
Yep.
is elsewhere, wherever that is. I believe Earth is the toughest experiment. So thanks. I
Oh,
think
I
I'm
think
done.
so
I think I've
too.
earned my stripes. I'll go be a new soul somewhere else.
I think
So,
so
but yeah,
too.
I feel it's really interesting though. I know I definitely know my parents went into the light. I did some work to like help dad drop some of his bags of karma before he went. And I asked him to take his mother's hand because I could feel his mother and his sister and his dad there while dad was dying in the other side of the world. Now, I don't know if it made any difference. It felt like it did. But I was like, take a hand. He was so scared to die. And I think he was scared of the consequences, like the life review. Um, but he did take a hand. His father was standing further back, which was sad. I hope they've had a chance to sort themselves out over there. But mum died really like that. She'd had a hip replacement, which she'd somehow talked them into doing at 87. And then she should have gone into a hospice, but she chose to go home. And she just got up to pee in the middle of the night. And as she stood, massive brain bleed, and she was just gone.
Wow.
She was literally gone before she hit the floor. And then my sister didn't find her for until the next day again, which I also think is quite good because by then mum will have been in the light. So if she's watching how we reacted, which anyone who's seen, I've been talking about this in the press about how elated I feel because I'm not the only person. And I think it's really important that people are okay with other people being, happy their parents have gone. That at least mum will have looked on it with compassion at how we reacted. My sister and I had a lot of very warped humor over it. Trauma humor, I like to
Mhm.
call it. Yeah, it's real. it's
It is real.
she and I have a lot of trauma humor, and yeah, we were very. I mean, we were shocking. If people had heard us, they'd just be like horrified. But
And
that's
but
one.
it's
It's a
how we
coping
survive.
mechanism. Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, it's like
exactly.
it's what we know. It's not
Mm,
healthy. We don't know that yet. So
yeah.
how do you
I have no
cope? It's a
plans to lose
coping
it.
mechanism that we
Yeah,
had
yeah.
to develop.
Mm,
And is it sick?
mm,
Yeah. But you
yeah,
have somebody who understands it, so it's not like you're the crazy
yeah.
one here. Now, my family, most of them are in denial. Now, my
Mm,
sister was
yeah.
telling me some of her story. I mean, I heard some things this past week that I didn't even know, and I wasn't even in the house
Mm,
anymore because was 18.
mm,
But hearing stories that I didn't even know, and I'm like, "Well,
yeah.
then what was the deal with this?" And she said, "Because she felt guilty." It was like all of a sudden I'm start seeing like a whole new level of my parents,
Mm,
of, just the abuse factor, and it wasn't just me. I mean, they went after everyone. I mean, it
yeah.
was just amazing, and then finding how prolific the liars are in my family, at least a sibling and
Mm,
a sister and a brother, and the denial because they're like, "Well, we had the best childhood." I'm like, "What planet were you on?"
you on,
Because
not this one.
there was
It's
no
re
such thing as a wonderful childhood when we were all fighting for our lives.
Yeah. It's really interesting with narcissism as well. It's, that ability to gaslight and crazy make is quite something else. But what we were trying to work out, so because my sister and I have been talking like, why are we empaths not narcissists? Why have we gone that part? And pretty well, I would say all four. Why haven't we gone the narcissism route? Because it'd be very easy to. But it's and we don't really have a definitive answer, but it's quite interesting. But I think the most traumatic part, I mean, definitely my eldest brother was absolutely beaten the most, and it sort of lessened as she came down to me, and I was the baby. Um, but I think the emotional abuse is almost harder, like that crazy making of your reality. and making everything about them. So you basically you give your entire self to them to create some form of safety. And then they tell you, but you didn't. And you're like, but I did. Because as you then become an adult and then you start to realize it, as I started healing, I mean, again, I fell into it at 40, but as I started being given the terminology and the understanding, and I could see how the behavior was, how I was being manipulated. And then and then you see all the times that you tried to call them out on their behavior and they tell you, no, you're lying. Like big,
Yeah,
big stuff. You know,
yeah.
when apparently I've since read this is quite normal, but when I got engaged to my first fiance, I've actually been engaged twice, but I only married one of them. Um, I we went over, showed mum the the engagement ring, and then she called me later to tell me how nauseous she felt at the hypocrisy of the fact that we were getting married when we were living together. And that's how she felt when she saw my engagement ring. And I curled up on the floor in the fetal position and sobbed, like sobbed. And that was one of the first times I started severing contact. There's been so many times until I finally went, enough. And when I told her that years later, she said, I never said that. Why on earth would I make that up? Like, how does that benefit me? Like, it just doesn't, you know, and it was just that she could deny such a thing and deny so many things, or say so matter of factly, which she said to my sister again. Um, so when she found out my memoir had come out, she was like, so really randomly, it was published on my birthday, and that's the day she looked at my Facebook. I'd been talking about it for like all the time before, but anyway, on my birthday, she discovers it and she's messaging my oldest brother and telling my sister, was I a bad mother? They fobbed her off somehow. And then she sort of said a bit later on, well, I know I brutalized you and your brother, but Katrina didn't get much. No remorse, no regret, factual like statement. What are we doing with that? You know, and I think that's which I'm sure you've experienced as well. That's the really tough part of it, is that they're telling you it's not abuse when it is abuse. And you almost have to prove to yourself it's abuse before you can heal. And you have to really, oh, well, I had to accept it. And that took many years
Oh, yeah.
to really go, no, this was abuse. This wasn't you got smacked around a bit because you're a 70s kid, you know. No, this is abuse. And now here's your behavior because of it. And now you need to do something about it.
Right, because if it wasn't abuse, we wouldn't be on this long healing journey, and we wouldn't be carrying rage and anger and showing a
Yeah.
face, putting a mask on, saying, "Hey, look at me, I'm so wonderful, look at all the
Uh,
accolades," and you're suffering and dying on the inside. I mean, that
mm,
is abuse, and I
mm,
think about, when I confronted my mother on things, and my mother was so good about, "I don't know, there was just so much." That was my mother, and,
that's what she'd do. Yeah.
yeah, just ever so much. And and
And
then
that
I
was
had to
dismissing her behavior or your dad's behavior?
hers. This was well,
Ah,
she was representing, I think, the family dynamic. So
mm,
but see, then I heard another part of the story that I never knew anything because my mother had lied profusely. Now, I knew when I wrote my books,
mm.
my life was a lie. I don't think I understood to the degree of my life
Oh,
being a
wow.
lie. And then my sister tells me all this stuff, and I said, I remember at 40, I was thinking, there's 2 sides to the story here you know, there's mom's
Mm,
side, there's dad's side, and somewhere in the middle, there's a truth.
yeah.
We never learned the truth. My sister knew the truth more
Right.
than anybody, and she finally shared
Mm,
it with me, and I said, at 40, I knew there was something more going on, that whatever,
mm,
because my mother was like, she just hated my dad, and she let the world know
mm,
it. She let us know it. She never liked any of our boyfriends or our husbands, but then when we did have someone, then she tried to
right.
take them from us. I mean, there was a sickness in my family because my
Mm.
mother did it to all of us.
But
She went after
she had
our men.
child maybe sexual abuse? That there was child
I
abuse
don't know
there.
about I know there was domestic violence. My grandfather
Mm,
beat my grandmother. I know a lot about
mm.
that. I'm not
Yeah.
sure on the sexual side of that, but I know my father was sexually molested.
Right.
So,
Gosh, that's a lot.
and I'm sure my mother probably was, but I don't know who the perpetrator would have been,
Mm,
because to me there were signs. There's a lot of signs that I think there was. That's what's coming in
mm.
now, and
Yeah,
they
because
never
the way
shared
that
it.
the way she behaved. I mean, it reminds me a bit. Have you ever seen the addiction tree?
The what?
That the addiction tree.
Yeah.
The one I see is on 12-step philosophy. And I just think it just beautifully explains so many of our behaviors. And she's doing a little bit of love addiction, sex addiction behavior, which comes from a core wound of shame, victimizer, low self-worth. And like I had love, well, I may still have love addiction. I haven't dated in a long time, but it's a behavior that's built from that core wound. And that comes from that earth that they use, which is, things like abuse, neglect, bullying. There's so many things that can cause it. Instability in childhood. I mean, I know I've healed my core wound. I just haven't dated. Because now I want a partner. There's lots of projects out there. Look, I want
Well, but
someone else
that's a
who's done the
good but
work,
see, that's what
you know.
happened
So
when
that's what
I wanted
happens when
to
you heal.
change.
You're like, yeah.
Well, that becomes the challenge because when my partner showed up in
Mm,
2008, when I went out and wrote
yeah,
the books and stuff, it
yeah.
was he was like, "Oh my god, there's like a real human being, not the things that I used to attract," right? And I'm talking male and
Mm,
female. I had no
yeah.
problems of always bringing
Mm,
that
mm.
codependent kind of
Yes,
relationship with my female friends as well as the males. I
yes.
was
Oh,
always the one
yes.
that was being
Work.
beaten up. Yeah, I mean, I was
Yeah.
so
Mm,
unworthy and
mhm,
desperate for friends. I would
mhm,
just be like, "Okay, whatever, I'll do
mhm,
whatever you want." And I'm not a people pleaser by any means, but
mm.
when you're lonely, you'll do
Yeah,
just about anything. And so when I
yeah.
met him, I was like, "Okay, first of all, why are you free? Because you should have been caught a long time ago." And then I realized it's like, my God, there's like hope. To me, he was a sign of hope
Mm,
because it's
yeah.
like, I just want to be a better person because there was somebody that I could look to that was actually in a crazy place, but he was
Mm,
still happy. And I'm like, I don't even have happiness in my life. I mean, it was
mm.
like I'm having to learn how to play again and have fun because
Yes.
that's the other thing when you're traumatized, you forget to have fun
You don't
because
know how
it's
to
work, work,
play.
work. Put your head down, get on to the
Yeah.
next, on to the next.
Or
And he helped me to play again.
play. Oh my God. So there's a chapter about my Labrador. I remember going to puppy class and you having to go, his name was Lance. Or Lance. I was having to, couldn't do any of it. Now, fine, you'd find me lying on the floor playing with the dog. It's just, but it was so hard because it wasn't even so much the be academic. It was the, okay, I'm playing. Am I being, because I'm a highly sensitive person. Mum is also highly sensitive or was. So, am I being too loud? Am I, just making am I going to get into trouble for this? Because honestly, you could get into trouble for breathing with her. It was ridiculous. So it was, I was never relaxed when I played.
Yep.
Maybe at school, but certainly, oh, even at school, I would have been concerned that I was going to get into trouble because the trouble at school led to more trouble at home. Um, so it was learning. Yeah, you're right. Learning to be free and learning. And I think that's why I loved. So Michelle Zelly, who's my first like life coach this life, she connected me to my inner child. And then I did work with Laura Borland. And then actually all the spiritual work has always included my inner child and right through to Isabel. Um, and that was like learning to love her and reparent myself and play and, color outside the lines and, do stuff like that. Um, has Kathleen frozen? Oh.
I am not sure what happened there. It's like it just froze on my end and it looked like you're coming in, so I thought, "Okay, let's just do a reload on," because I couldn't leave, it was frozen on my end too. So I
Ah,
apologize, this is the first this
no,
has
I
ever
reloaded
happened.
several times. I I've checked my internet all as well, so I don't
I
know what
know,
happened,
so
but
was
it
I,
doesn't matter.
that was so weird, but what I'll do is
And
even though
it's
it's
still
live, I'll
uploading, so
cut everything and bring it together on another
that's all right.
version, but
Sorry, anybody listening live.
I know, technical difficulties some days, it just happens, what do you do?
Yeah, it was
And
all
this is
right.
a first time for me, so this is like, interesting. Well, now I know how to
Well, I
fix it.
just kept reload the pages usually what
And I
I
saw
do.
that
I
too,
just
and so I thought, well, I couldn't leave to reload, so I just did the command R to reload, and here you are.
and here we are. Well, we're
Okay.
back.
So let's finish because we are coming close to winding up, but,
Oh, I know.
yeah, let's go
Sorry
ahead
about
and
that.
finish what you were saying because you were starting to me make a real interesting point, whatever
What was
that
I
was.
saying?
I don't remember.
I
I don't
don't remember
remember.
either.
I think we were talking about our parents and the trauma that they have gone through and what
Mm,
they were giving to us as far as, bringing that the
mm,
lies. I think part of it was the lies that we were
lies.
experiencing, and then how we survived the lies, and, bringing in a new man.
Oh, yes, that's right. You were talking about your partner and him not being a project. Yeah, no,
Yes,
I think I just
exactly, a
genuinely,
project.
yeah, I just genuinely think that there are a few
There
partners
are a
around.
few.
There are, and when the time is right, and to be honest, I can sense him. He's been around for ages. It's just a case of actually calling him in, and I just haven't. I think I've been so focused on birthing my memoir, and because I haven't written it for me, it's not a vanity project. It's a please heal your stuff. Let me show you what I did. This is just, and I have written it all out, the weird, wacky, the wonderful. And if it inspires one person, I will be so happy. And I know it's already working its magic because I hear people tell me that they bought it and it sparked an idea. And I just wanted to put words, particularly for anyone who's been through narcissistic abuse, it's that like the words and the way my body proved it. Oh, we were talking about play, weren't we?
Right,
That's a sign you've had trauma. And then I'd have particular pains in my body where I'd been defensive for years that, came through kinesiology and sort of just like proving it, which sounds weird, but I just think you need to do that when it's narcissistic abuse. And then it's please heal, like please try something. Even if
play
you don't believe what we're talking about, that's okay. I didn't initially either, but I
yes.
just over time,
And I
there's
went back
so
into
much
ballroom
evidence.
dancing. That was what got me to
Ah,
play and
wonderful.
have fun and express all the things that I loved as a kid.
Yeah.
I got to do all of that, and I didn't realize, and trust me, folks, ballroom dancing is not easy. It is so much
No.
easier to be an independent dancer than having a partner because it's his energy, your energy, and then the couple energy, and learning
Yeah.
how to weave all of that together. But it was such a beautiful gift for me because
Mm,
as hard as they pushed me, and I wanted them to push me, and I told them to because I wanted to
mm,
be a champion dancer, and I would grumble at them, and then but I wouldn't let them stop, and I said, If I'm grumbling, who cares? Push me harder." And they did,
yeah.
because I was
Yeah.
always happy, because they could
Yeah.
see, and I remember one of my instructors once, he said, he never recommends anybody to watch their video before they're ready to go on stage or do a competition. And I read
Mm,
mine, and everything he had told me that I couldn't see or feel in my body, I
mhm.
watched, it was like I saw every bit of it. He says, "You're the only person I know who could take that kind of to do that and not get all messed up in your head." I said, "I wanna be a good dancer." Now this is part of that unworthy, I wanna be the
Interesting.
best thing.
Mm,
Yes. Was a paradigm playing? Yes. But it was a paradigm for me because this was something that mattered to me.
mm.
And so that was
See,
what
is
was
it
so
because
cool.
that's from but it's from love and play and joy, and that
Yeah.
helps you love yourself when so it's funny because you say that, and I think about I improved as a speaker by watching myself on video. If someone had said, "Oh, you a lot," which I still do, um, I probably wouldn't have got it, but when you hear yourself back, you're like, "Oh, yeah, you really do a lot." But it's that no, I think that's a great way to learn. Isn't that funny? You think that
Yeah,
people get
but
up in their
playing
head.
is because
To me, it's
spirit
that
wants you to
sit
play.
yeah,
They want you to
yeah.
play,
They
and,
don't
when
understand
you
why we
don't have
humans are so
play.
serious, do they? They don't get
No.
it.
Oh, no, 'cause how many times did they would do something and I'd be like at them, and, they're laughing. They're
Oh,
absolutely
yeah.
laughing, and I'm like, "You
Mm,
get your butt down here and you tell me how easy it is to live on this planet," and they're laughing. I mean, they're rolling on the
yeah,
floor laughing, okay? That's how I saw them. And
absolutely.
then it
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, you're so funny." Because what they were
Mm.
trying to do was get me to lighten up, that if I would just
Ah, okay.
lighten
Oh,
up.
sorry, this wasn't your trainer showing you video. This was the divine
Oh, no,
showing you images.
this is back in the '90s when I lived in
Oh,
Nevada,
sorry.
and they
I
were, like,
misunderstood.
teaching me how to play because
Mm,
I was so stressed and holding so tightly on
yeah.
something, and they're just
Mm,
trying to get me to lighten up, and the minute I lightened up and started laughing, going, "Oh, you guys are really funny. I got what you just did here."
mm.
It was
Yeah,
like everything shifted at that
gotcha.
moment because it was about you need to play. Just
Yes, yes.
play. And that word was a foreign language to me. It's like,
Mm.
"Play? I don't even
Yeah,
know what you're talking about."
because play wasn't safe.
Right, it wasn't.
Play was if you let yourself go, which is what you're doing, isn't it? When you're playing, you're not caring, you're just having fun and not worrying about what you look like and how you're behaving, and you're just having fun. It's you're not safe when you have abusive parents, when
Well,
you
and
could
my
be in
mother
trouble
beat me
for
one time. I remember her
yeah.
beating me. I was playing with
Mm,
and she came up and beat the hell out of me. I'm like,
mm,
I'm like, "We're just playing. We're just playing."
yeah.
That's all I said because I did not know what triggered her to do that. So, to me, play
Mm.
was dangerous. You don't play.
Yeah,
Not in my house because if you play, you
yeah.
get beat.
Interesting. Wonder why
Yeah,
you chose
so
that. In your life between life with that contract, you went, "No play."
and what's the one thing
I
that I've
will learn
reconnected?
play from no play.
Yeah. So what's the one thing that I'm learning to do is, like, I wanna play. I wanted to
Yeah,
play my whole life. I came
yeah.
down here to play with life, and I played, but not the way I wanted to play. So now I'm
Yes.
learning how to play. So yesterday,
Mm.
when we were at lunch, when I had to pick up some money for this water heater, the Supremes come on with "Baby Love, My Baby
Yeah.
Love, Oh, How I Need You." I sat there and I'm in a restaurant, and
Mm.
I'm doing this, and my hips are going, and I'm singing it to my boyfriend,
I hear you.
and he's just laughing. My business partner's there, he's like, "I've never seen this side of you." It was the funniest thing,
Yeah.
but it was at that moment, like, all the stress of this whole water heater going out, I
It's
just started to
that matters.
play. And then it was
Yeah.
like I would hug him, and it's like, "I need you." And then we afterwards, when we got home after dinner, I said, "You know, I said, "I'm getting the Supremes again. I'm gonna get that because I don't know what happened to my CD that I had or
Mm.
tape." And I said, "But," I said, "I really do need you, and I have never needed anyone in my life, but I do need you, but not in a sick, dependent way, but as a
Mm.
support," because all he
Yeah.
did was just sit there like, "Oh god, here she goes," and he's not used to that, and he thought it was funny, and he says, "But you really do need to know how to play," so he let me play, and if he
Yeah.
was embarrassed, he still let me play because he says, "You
But
so need that in your life." And
but
I'm
it's
like,
not even a
"Wow."
let me. He just watched you. It wasn't even a let you.
I know,
You allowed to.
but see, to me, it was a let because nobody's
No.
ever let me play before, and
But
to me, that was
that's what
like,
a partner would do. They
yeah,
would just support you doing
exactly.
that. So they're not giving you permission, they're just supporting. It is funny, I know what you mean. I came out of, Orlando Airport, and to be honest, I was just quite thrilled there were no issues getting through customs because, it can be a bit scary at the moment. And, I cruised through out into waiting for my Uber, and there was music playing. And I'm bopping away. And I just look around. I'm the only one doing that. But the music was so loud and so good. And I just thought I would never have done that before I'd done all of the healing. And actually, one of my dog walking mates around here has caught me out in the supermarket before singing away to the music that's on, and he's come sidling up to me and gone, hello.
I
It's
know,
been
but
so hilarious. But it's that joy, and I think it's really funny when we talk about the whole, the awakening, which goes hand in hand with the healing. You do have to heal this life, and if you can, go heal all the past lives and everything, because to me, they were a big part of it. But that joy and that love of self, and I just think once you have that love of self, you will go and sing just outside the airport in Orlando and not care, and or dance and just not care.
yeah,
And I think
because
there's
I didn't care.
such a freedom
It is a
that's come from
freedom,
that.
and
Mm,
that's what I think that's the greatest joy, and that was a sign of true healing for me is that
yeah.
I just let myself go, and what was
Yeah.
it?
So
This is a
you
song.
let yourself. He
Yeah.
didn't let you, you let you.
Yeah, but it was because it was like
Mm,
in this restaurant, they kept playing songs of when I was like I don't know, 10 to 14 years
Mm,
old, and
yeah.
that was when all the damage was happening, but it was like there was still that element of joy, and it was like I ex it the life I have was not what I expected,
Mhm.
but there was a joy in the music that
Yeah.
that helped me to navigate
Mm.
during some of the darkest moments of my life as a child, because
100%.
18 was a long ways off at
Yeah.
14, you know, and so I think
Yeah.
that's what that did was it was like I just kept hearing of, "This
Mm.
helped me to survive."
Yeah.
It played a very
Oh,
strong role,
100%.
and so to be able to sit there and be in the restaurant and start
Mm.
singing, of all things,
Mm.
singing the song, you know, 'cause it's like, "Whoa, okay, Kath, what are you doing?" It's like, this is fun because it's the
Yeah.
Supremes, and I love
The
the
Divine
Supremes
do
band.
do love using music. I think it's funny because a lot of people talk about the clarity. Actually, I heard a video the other day. They're saying if you have ringing in your ears, I've never had ringing in my ears, but I
I
definitely
do.
have two-way conversations. Oh, I don't. I have two-way conversations and occasionally popping, but never. But I was in a taxi. I think it was maybe Berlin, and the driver was crazy. And I remember muttering in my head, like, Archangel Michael, I don't think you're going to have to take care of me here. And the next song that came on was Don't Worry, Be Happy. And I just started laughing. I was just like, okay, thank you.
Yeah,
I
they
know I'm
deliver
okay.
messages in the best way,
The
don't
best
they?
way.
The best way. You can't
I
beat the
know.
way they deliver messages.
No. And so, yeah, I find music quite a lot. Music lyrics
Yep,
that just keep suddenly from nowhere going around and around in my head. Oh, right. Okay, here we go.
I
What's
know,
this
right?
about? Yeah. It's fun. I love it.
Well,
So
we're out of time.
I
So,
know.
Catherine, I wanna thank you for coming on the show. This was a
Thank
lot of fun,
you.
definitely a different spin, but, you know, the joy
Yeah,
even with trauma, and we got on the other side, and we can have fun and be a
absolutely.
crazy people. You can say, "Oh, that's just a crazy old lady," but you know what? I'd rather be a
That's
crazy
okay.
old lady than a stuffed shirt anymore.
Well,
I've
or
been
an
that too long.
unhealed victim of trauma. I'd rather
Right.
be a healed crazy lady than an unhealed
Yep.
victim of trauma, which
Me
is what I
too.
was. So
So
glad you've
tell
been in the
everyone how they
journey.
can get a hold of you and your book and whatever you do.
Yeah, so I mean, Google me. I usually come up quite easily. So Katrina Collier, that sounds dreadful, doesn't it? But I'm quite vocal, so you can find me quite easily. But also, yeah, I mean, Amazon or wherever you like to buy your books online. The Damage of Words, and it's not a misery memoir. It really is about my healing journey. There is a chapter about my childhood and a few about how I proved to myself that it was trauma, and then how I healed, and including the spiritual and all of the awakening and all the weird, wacky, and wonderful, as I like to say, because I think that's the best part. That was
Yep.
probably some of the most healing as well. So I've
Yep.
just written it out, and all I want to do is I just want to inspire people to heal their stuff. Don't
Yep.
carry it. You don't need to carry it. It impacts yourself and everyone around you. Let it go. Let it
Yep.
go.
I agree with that very much so. And if you all got any value out of the show, feel free to like and subscribe, and we can notify you of the next show. And also, I do have a school community. So if you want to join the community, it's free right now at I am the light sanctuary /about. And you can learn more about what I do. And also, I think that's pretty much everything at this moment. And of course, my books, Dancing Souls, is my journey of an
Mm,
awakening. So I'm sure we have very different healing adventures, but sounds very similar adventures.
mm.
But it's it's we're we're gonna reach the right people. So who Katrina
Yeah.
goes after and who I go for are 2 different people because of our
Mm,
energies, and there's a beautiful resonance with that. So there's
mm.
no reason not to heal when there's so many healers out there who are
Exactly.
willing to do the work, that have done the work and can show you the way. So you don't
Mm,
have to be alone in this process because it's a painful process and it can be very
mm,
lonely. So
mm.
I will see all of you next week, Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And from my heart to yours, I hope you all have a fabulous week.